talk about Girl STEM for a minute. That might allow some people who are going to come in some time
Sure.
to come in. Again, I'm Renee. I want to say thank you for your time this evening.
Sure.
I'm Director of Family Engagement for Girl STEM Institute, and it's important to us that our scholars and their parents get the information that they need to understand or get a better concept on what the diploma track now looks like and who and
Sure.
when will it go into play and how will it impact. And Miss Robin already introduced herself and what she does and who she is with GSI. Dr. Krista Morton is founder and CEO of Girl STEM Institute. So we always want to always say thank you when she allows these different platforms for Girl STEM Institute, and to just we're a family here, and so we just wanted to make sure that this information got out to our scholars and parents. And then we do have a parent, Miss Rashid. How are you? Is she there? Anyway,
How
that's a
you
parent of
doing?
I'm
Oh, there
well.
she is.
Tell Olivia we said hello if she can hear us, and if not, pass on the message for us.
Okay, yes, I will definitely tell her.
Okay, we're
I
gonna
said
go
hello.
ahead and get started. Some people may come on a little bit later. I want to be respectful of Miss Frazier's time. We also are going to be recording this, so people can still have access to this. So Rebecca, with those introductions, if you would like to introduce yourself, but if you have any questions for us first, we can take those based off the introductions. But if not, you can introduce yourself
Oh,
and get
sure.
going.
Yeah. I'm Rebekah Frazer. I'm the school counseling specialist for the Indiana Department of Education. I've been in this role almost 4 years now. That's crazy. They say time flies when you're having fun. But prior to that, I spent most of my time as a high school counselor, most recently 10 years at Brownsburg High School, just outside of Indianapolis. And then before that, I was at a charter school in downtown Indy. I worked with 6 through 12 students in the Fountain Square area. Also, I have a background in juvenile justice. I actually started in mental health counseling first and made that transition to school counseling just to help be support students in being proactive and finding their path and their purpose. So excited to be here with you all this evening and share updates to the high school diploma.
And Rebecca, I'm sorry, I forgot one of our team members, Miss Carolyn Caver.
Oh,
She
gotcha.
she is on the Girl STEM Institute team as well, and she
Yeah.
works in various areas. And so I just wanted to say, let you know, say hi to Miss Caver. All
How
right.
are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Okay, Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Okay, perfect. Well, as you all know, we're here to talk about the new high school diploma. Hopefully, most of you have seen the new requirements by now. So, really, what I'm going to do this evening is touch on those just as a reminder or in case you haven't seen them in a bit. But also, we're going to walk through a student's unique pathway this evening as well, just to give you an idea of what this may look like in practice with different pathways and options. So, and I'll try to give some other examples along the way as well. But each school is going to be a little different in what pathways and opportunities they have to offer. But this will be a good start, I think, just to get some ideas around what it may look like moving forward for students with a high school path. You can go ahead and change the next slide if you want. So I already introduced myself, but again, I'm excited to be here from the Department of Education. I did forget to mention I'm also part of the Indiana School Counselor Association and support school counselors across Indiana as they work with your students and your families. So if you don't know your school counselor, get to know them. They're great people and they're here to help your students and your families find that best path through high school. Next slide. So if you have students that have been in the education space in Indiana for a while, you've probably heard about graduation pathways. It came around after we've had the Core 40 diploma actually since I was in high school, we'll say a few years ago. So really the high school diploma hasn't changed for quite some time, but we did add graduation pathways in back in around 2009 to help students hopefully prepare for a career or a path outside of high school, in addition to just taking classes and checking a box off of requirements, which we know that's important too, but we wanted to make sure that students were prepared for the workforce and for jobs that would be available for them. So this should look a little bit familiar, and it was meant as I think in good faith to help students find pathways, but unfortunately there were some limitations to it. And again, it kind of felt more like a checkbox of, hey, you have to meet these certain requirements. And sometimes I think students had to take classes in a pathway that maybe wasn't necessarily their interest, but we had to get those graduation requirements done. You can click the next slide. Or actually, it'll pop up. I think there's another thing on this slide. There we go. So, for those of you, it may have been that box one, getting that Core 40 diploma. And then also for students was some sort of post-secondary readiness measure, which again, I think it was in good faith that we thought maybe we would check off some of those boxes for students that were interested in going to college. But as we know, not every student maybe has the desire to go to college, or it's not the best fit for them, but they can still get a technical pathway or find some sort of certification that may better prepare them for a job that they're interested in. So that made us kind of shift to what we call now the next level programs of studies, which that has been into play since a couple years after graduation pathways rolled out. They're still available to students, and I'll talk about that as we move forward. So, but these are mostly career and technical education programs that for some students it is a good fit. It's something they're interested in, something they enjoy, like for example, like IT programming, engineering, a lot of those STEM fields maybe fit under some of those next level program of studies, whether that's like CNA or other medical pathways. But again, it ended up, I think, kind of limiting students to, oh, we have to get one of these done. And again, it may not have been the best fit. You can click the next slide for me. So as this may look familiar, you would see the different capstones that would be required. Again, students can still utilize graduation pathways if it's an interest, but in moving forward, we really wanted to make sure that students had more opportunities to find a unique pathway for them, whether it is enrolling into a post-secondary institution such as a 2 or 4 year college, or we wanted to make sure that if students wanted to go straight to employment, that they had certifications and they were highly qualified for those positions, and they knew it was something they wanted to do. They had experience in it, whether a job shadow, work-based learning, things along those lines. We wanted to make sure that those opportunities were available for students. And then we didn't want to leave out our students that may be interested in enlisting in the military or public service, like police officers, firefighters. We know that those roles are essential to our country moving forward. So we wanted to encourage students that were interested in those fields to make sure that A, they were eligible to enlist if they were ready, or again, getting some on-the-job training to move into those roles if needed. So we've made sure when we were looking at the new diploma, you'll see these 3 elements are included. So, but to start with, there was an update to that final diploma rule. It came out, I want to say, in August of last year. So we've been kind of tweaking it and making updates to it since that time. For students, they will earn one base diploma that has more minimum or flexible requirements for all students to make sure that A, we're supporting students that are ready for just finishing high school and going to the workforce, or again, enrolling in a post-secondary education, or looking at enlistment and service. In addition to that minimum base diploma, there are opportunities for students to earn those readiness seals in those 3 areas that I mentioned. There's an honors and honors plus option. And again, those are aligned with each student's unique path that they have in mind when they're moving through high school. Now, there is still the alternate diploma for students with significant special education needs. That's not changed. So if you do have a student that is taking that IM assessment and they are working in special education classes, we still have that diploma available as well. But this does change for those of you that have kiddos that are older. The Core 40 diploma and the academic honors and technical honors will end with the class of 2028. So that would be starting everybody with the class of 2029. That would be this year's ninth graders will finish this final diploma option moving forward. Next slide. So we'll look at here, again, if you've been in the education space for a while, or you have older kiddos or siblings, or even yourself that went through, the Core 40 diploma requirements are on the left, and then the new diploma requirements are on the right. So you can see a comparison between the two on what has changed. So for English, there are still 2 credits in English 9. We do have 1 credit in a communications focused course. There is a full list of courses that meet that. It could be a traditional speech class, but there's some other courses that meet that requirement. And I do have those all linked at the end. So it just depends on what your school offers. It may look a little bit different. Most likely your schools are going to be putting out a list that's specific to their buildings. But we do have the full list of courses that are available at the DOE website. And then in addition to that, communications focused and English 9, there's 5 additional English credits, and that can be in multiple different things, film literature, composition. Again, just trying to look at what the student may be interested in, and I'll give you some examples moving forward what that looks like for a student and trying to help them find courses that meet the requirements, but also that they're interested in and maybe relate to their future career path. For math, it has shifted a little bit for the base diploma. Every student's still going to get 2 credits in Algebra 1 for that base foundation, but after that, there's a little bit more flexibility if your student maybe isn't moving on to enrolling in a college or a higher level position that would need heavier math. We are requiring now 1 credit in personal finance. We were hearing from a lot of colleges that students just weren't prepared in budgeting their money and making financial decisions. And so I'm excited to see that come back in. I feel like that's something I missed when I was a teenager to help with some of that budgeting skills and things along those lines. And then outside of that, it's 4 additional math credits that, again, are hopefully we're supporting students and aligning those to their pathway. It could be a business math course. It could be still your traditional geometry, algebra 2, especially for those kiddos that are doing are looking at enrolling in college, but there's still a little bit of flexibility there. And I could say as a student that math wasn't necessarily my strength. Sometimes you can look at other options to see what's best going to fit for the student. For science, we're still looking at 2 credits in biology 1. 1 credit in computer science is just an intro to computer science course, which we feel like, again, with students now in the digital age, they need to have those computer skills. So we were keeping that in mind as we were looking at courses moving forward. 2 additional science credits that, again, could be anything that's in the science field that they're interested in. It could be an animal science, it could be biology 2, it could be lots of different things. And then 2 STEM focused credits, again, could be a traditional science class, but it could also be technology related. It could be engineering. It could be an additional math course of interest. So again, giving some more flexibility for students to find what works best for them. And then for social studies, we're still looking at 2 credits in U.S. history, 1 credit in U.S. government, 2 credits in world perspectives courses. Those could be flexible, including it could be world language, it could be a psychology course, it could be sociology. So again, a little bit more flexible in your traditional history courses as well. Looking at physical education and health, we did pare that down a little bit to 1 PE credit and 1 health credit. So that would take care of a year-long course, 1 each semester. 1 question that we've had on that is, can students still utilize a PE waiver if they're participating in a sport? That is a local decision by school, but yes, you can still do that, at least from the department's perspective. And then outside of that, we used to have directed electives that students had to take in fine arts or world languages, but we opened those up to just be personalized electives. It can definitely still include those things if you have students that are interested in performing arts, and I could say that I was a choir kid, so I know that those are still important, but it can be other things as well, such as other CTE classes or work-based learning opportunities, things along those lines. And then lastly, we do require a college and career prep course. Again, we want students to take that early in their high school career, or even some schools are offering it in eighth grade just to start students in thinking about their pathways. We want to do that as early as possible, just so that by the time they get to high school, they can already have that unique plan in place and be taking advantage of those opportunities. So that's just a quick overview of the base diploma. I'll quickly touch on the seals as well, but if students earn the base diploma that I just went over, they would still need to create or complete a graduation pathway. So that would be that box 2 and box 3 requirement for those of you that have been around for a bit. It would be getting some work-based learning in. It could be a CTE concentrator and a career pathway, or it could be meeting some of those test scores in the past for SAT or ASVAB for students that are interested in the military. So graduation pathways would still be required for students if they're just doing the base diploma. The other opportunity would be to consider one of the enlistment or readiness seals. And it would be enrollment, employment, and enlistment. They have the honors or the honors plus. For the enrollment honors seal, students that have traditionally pursued the academic honors in the past, it's going to be very similar to that. We did shift the world language requirement a little bit. Instead of 6 credits in a world language, most colleges were requiring only 2 years of a foreign language, equaling 4 credits. So we did align that with their base entry requirements. For math, for students, you do have to complete 8 math credits, and those can be started before high school. I know some students do take Algebra 1 in middle school, and that's okay, but you still need to have at least 8 math credits total by the time you graduate. That's most likely going to be your Algebra 1 plus your geometry and Algebra 2. Most colleges require that base for admission, but then that last class could be a pre-calculus, a finite, just depending on what aligns with the student's interest and also what's available at the school level. But I always recommend for students, if you have a college in mind, making sure that you're looking at their minimum requirements. For example, IU Bloomington usually requires a pre-cal course, so you want to make sure that you're being mindful of that. For science, it's at least 6 science credits. This is where it gets a little confusing on the wording, but students will get 2 credits in biology, 2 credits in chemistry, and then the last 2 credits can be in any advanced lab science course. That could be a physics, it could be integrated physics and chem, it could be biology too, just depending on what your school has to offer. So you have a little bit flexibility on those last 2 credits. There is still the requirement to have a C or higher in all courses that count towards the diploma. And then completing one of the following, as I mentioned before, it looks very similar to the honors diploma, including dual credits or college credits, AP, or you can do a combination of the two. There's also IB requirements that can meet that, and also SAT or ACT scores. I always tell students, though, if you get that score early, great, but just don't bank on that to the last minute. Make sure that you have a backup plan just in case, because that 1250 on the SAT can be kind of difficult to get. And then for the Honors Plus seal, it's everything I just mentioned, although we do add in some work-based learning for that seal. So for students, they would earn a credential of value, which could include the Indiana College Core. The Indiana College Core is 30 base credits that are meant to be a way for students to earn that and transfer those seamlessly into our public universities in Indiana. Many schools are offering the Indiana College Core. If your school is not offering that yet, we are looking for all schools to start adding those, and there is support for that for schools that want to jump in through the Commission for Higher Education. Outside of that, as I mentioned, there is work-based learning requirement hours. It's 75 hours of work-based learning. It can be up to 3 different experiences, and the clock actually starts on that at the end of their 8th grade year. So they could start collecting hours that summer before they go into freshman year, and the summer is obviously in between, especially for kiddos that are busy and maybe not be able to do the hours during the school year. And then there is a requirement for the Honors Plus seal and also the Employment Plus seal to demonstrate skills in collaboration, communication, and work ethic. Again, those are skills that we heard from employers and colleges that were important for students to have. The good news is we've already been working on those in Indiana through employability skills. So there is a sample document of what those skills look like. But essentially, it's are they able to work effectively with other people and communicate well. So those are things that your students should already be working on, but there is a sample score for that you can see. I have linked at the end of the presentation. For the employment seal, this one does require more work-based learning requirements. So it would be completing one of the credentials of value, and I'll share that list when we get at the end. It's a little bit more specific work-based learning opportunities that are available for students. It can still be your traditional CTE pathways. It can be with a career scholarship program if your students participating in those or if you have those at your school, or an approved locally created pathway. It is 150 hours of work-based learning. Same thing as with the enrollment seal. It can be up to 3 different experiences. Those can be paid, unpaid. They can be on-site at the school. They can also be a simulated experience as well. And I'll show you some examples of that as we walk through the presentation. As again, having those skills in communication, collaboration, and work ethic. For both the employment and the enlistment seal, there is an attendance goal. We are hearing from employers and from schools that they need students that are going to be there and be dependable. Those would be unexcused absences. We're looking at 3 or less per year. So medical appointments, if your student goes to school and they're sent home from the nurse, that counts as an excused absence. Those don't count against the student. It would just be those unexcused absences. So try not to go on that cruise early before spring break or before school ends. Try to be mindful that every day your student is at school is important. But we do know sometimes things happen, just trying to limit those unexcused absences. And then for the Employment Plus seal, it is more work-based learning hours. You can also earn one of those credentials of value that I mentioned before through the Indiana College Core, getting a technical certificate. It's 650 total hours instead of the 150 for that seal. Usually that's going to be more of an apprenticeship program where the student is linked with an employer and getting those on the job hours during and after school. And then lastly, again, that communication, collaboration, work ethic skills, because again, we know how important those are for students to be successful. And then lastly, for the enlistment and service seal, students will complete an intro to public service course that is either offered at the school or I know Indiana Online Academy is offering that online for students, for schools maybe that don't have the class in place yet. So that would be an option. It's a 1 semester course. Or if your school has JROTC, that would count if you complete 1 year of that program. But we do know that that can be limited. You may not have access to that if your school doesn't offer it, so that you do have that course option as well if you can't get in JROTC. Students must get a score of 31 on the ASVAB and also complete a career exploration program. Sometimes that is embedded into the ASVAB, or they can use a career exploration tool that's approved by the DOE. Shameless plug, I do support Indiana Career Explorer at the department. You can utilize that tool. It's free for anyone to use, even adults. So definitely make sure you're taking advantage of those free opportunities that are out there. As I mentioned, there's an attendance goal with the military. Obviously, you have to be there if you enlist every day. So we want to make sure we're ensuring those skills early. And then one thing that is a little unique about the enlistment seal is that we do want to set students up with a mentorship with a recruiter or military personnel or public service professional, just so students know what their requirements are. That was always the worst part of my job as a school counselor, when I'd have a kid that was interested in enlisting or getting into public service, and we get to senior year and they didn't have what they needed. They didn't meet the physical requirements, they didn't meet some sort of requirement. So we want to avoid that and start those conversations early. And then lastly, for the Honors Plus seal, it is a little bit of a higher ASVAB score. It's a 50 or higher. This is most likely going to be your students that are looking at a service academy, which is very competitive to get into. So if they get accepted into the Naval Academy, Army, then that would meet that requirement. They also have to have some more public service and leadership, looking at 100 hours of involvement there, or completing extracurricular activities would meet that as well. So that is just a quick overview of the new diploma requirements. This document will be available for you. I do have those linked at the end of the presentation. And again, I'll save some time for questions at the end if you have questions about the base diploma. All right, so now we'll dive into a purposeful pathway for every student. If you want to move to the next slide. So in looking at pathways and moving forward, we wanted to make sure that students had access to a quality student pathway. Again, not just checking boxes, making sure that it's specific for every student. So you're going to see all four of these elements are embedded throughout the experience for a student. It's a customized course sequence, tailored advising and coaching, looking at aligning work-based learning experiences, and again, looking at market-driven credentials of value. So opportunities for students to earn credentials while in high school and giving them a heads up against the competition out there as they start to look for jobs once they graduate. So next, we'll follow a purposeful path for my test student. If you want to go ahead and switch to the next slide. So this is Tyler. Looking at Tyler, he reminds me of the average junior I would work with at the high school. He's interested in pursuing in the future law or public administration, and his track is going to be the Enrollment Honors Plus seal. So as we walk through this, we'll be following what Tyler's path would look like. Next slide. So, in looking at personalized career coaching and advising, the school is going to identify what career pathways and programs that they will offer. Again, as I mentioned, that may look different for each school, but your students' school counseling programs will be providing those information or that information to you on what is available local. So looking at that, I will say Indiana is kind of on the edge that we do have already an ecosystem to support that personalized college and career coaching. That includes your student starts their graduation plan usually during their 8th grade year of high school. They're doing a lot of college and career exploration before doing that, so that hopefully they start having in mind some pathways that they want to consider. We do, as I mentioned, have Indiana Career Explorer that's free for students to use. That starts all the way back in kindergarten. Believe it or not, we have students already starting to doing those career interest surveys and thinking about things they like doing and things that they are good at. We do have investment from our intermediaries and career coaching programs. We do have a grant in Indiana that supports that work through the Commission of Higher Education to help add more career coaches to the field and to schools, but also to help students get out and get those experiences. So, in considering that, looking at how communities can help support is again looking at what industries are around you and what's available and trying to have those partnerships early. We are also looking at, as I mentioned before, financial counseling and supporting students in thinking about their path after college and planning for that early so it's not a surprise. We're also looking at career coaching, as I mentioned, and trying to expand that as well. So next slide, we'll look at Tyler's journey on his personalized career coaching and academic advising. So as I mentioned before, he is interested in studying law or public administration. He started doing college and law school visits early just to expose him to what is required for him if he wants to study that in the future. So that again, it's not a surprise as we get to junior and senior year that he's already knows what courses he needs to take throughout high school. And then another piece would be that having those conversations about financial aid and planning for paying for college and what job opportunities that he can do, maybe even during college, to help pay for some of those things. So we're not just waiting until we start paying student loans back at the end, like I can say I did, and I just recently paid mine off. So hopefully we do that a little quicker. So next for Tyler, if you want to go to the next slide here. Well, also another piece of this is connecting students early to those industry professionals. So during his junior year, Tyler and his classmates actually followed 3 cases from a judge in the local community. And they got to explore the case and make their determinations. But then at the end, they got to talk with the judge about the trial and how it went, and then other things that they maybe need to consider. So they got that real world experience of what it would actually be to work in a legal pathway. Next slide. So next, we'll talk about the custom course sequences and educational experiences that Tyler was able to put into his schedule throughout school. So when looking at the requirements, we know all students have to have those math and English requirements, but we try to embed experiences into those courses that make those classes meaningful for students. So they were able to maybe integrate some industry specific concepts while also getting those academic requirements done. So we know that this is not the work of just the educators. We hope, again, if you're having those relationships with employers, that they can help in giving you some examples in shaping the coursework that students do. So some examples in this. So looking at in math, if students are in an advanced manufacturing pathway, the math that they're going to use is going to look a little bit different, but it still is algebra based. So sometimes I would always hear from students when I was a school counselor, like, I'm never going to use that algebra one again. But again, if you can really tie it back to maybe some of the things that they're doing with the logistics programming and engineering things that they're doing, it would be more meaningful. And then for Tyler's case, maybe technical communications, like how to write a professional letter, how to have those professional communication skills. So again, making it more applicable to students instead of just taking an English class and writing mock letters that maybe don't apply to them or they don't feel apply to them. Next slide. So another piece to this for schools to think about is that credits look a little bit different now than what they used to. It used to be that you were sitting in a physical desk for so many hours a day that that would mean that they earned a credit. One thing with the new diploma and being more flexible is, again, students can demonstrate that they have mastery of skills when they're out in the field. It doesn't have to be in a desk. So we are looking at ways to, again, where students can get credits for doing things out in the workforce. That's going to look a little bit different, again, for every school and depending on where you are in the state. But just know there is a little bit more flexibility with that. And we are providing guidance to schools in work-based learning and credits by proficiency as well. Next slide. So for Tyler's case here, some of the custom classes that he had, again, he's interested in law, just a reminder. So his English composition class, he was actually able to focus on writing some legal text, which requires a little bit different skill than just writing a traditional letter. But he actually took this course as a dual credit towards the Indiana College Core, and he was able to apply it towards earning his associates as a paralegal. So again, for him, it's very applicable, but he's getting those real world skills that he would use when he's out in the field. And then for US history, again, we know all juniors typically take US history, but in his class, he actually did study some Supreme Court cases and was able to use those to meet the history requirements as well. And then for the Indiana College Core, as I mentioned, those are base courses that students typically have to take during their freshman and sophomore year of college. He was able to complete multiple of those courses and again, save him some time and money once he went to college and having some of those base requirements already done. And then lastly, as I mentioned, students may have the opportunity to get some credits while they're doing work-based learning. So he was doing a work-based learning placement that he was able to do a writing portfolio, and it was evaluated for credit as well. I like the comment, this doesn't look like high school did to me 25 years ago. Me either, and I'm excited about that. Again, I think it will help students feel that high school is more relevant to them and what they want to do in the future. Next slide. Now that we've talked about courses and advising, we're going to talk more about those work-based learning experiences that are more industry specific for students. So again, we want it to be a more customized approach for students, not just, hey, I'm getting a job at McDonald's. I mean, that's great. That can count for some of those hours, but we want it to be, try to align it with options that students are interested in doing. So again, it can be up to 3 different placements. One of those could be a part-time job, but we hope that some of them may be directed towards what the student is interested in doing. But with that said, we do understand that there are limitations for students getting out to work-based learning experiences. So it can be an in-school enterprise as well, where the school actually sets up something in the building that students participate in. There's some great examples of that happening all over the state, and I actually do have a document linked at the end that have more examples as well, but I pulled out a couple. Creek Cattle Company, which is up in Trafalgar, Indiana, up in northern Indiana, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but they actually did a school farm to table enterprise. So they actually raise a cow at the school. They take care of it. There is the FFA club that also, I think, supports that work as well. They actually learn how to butcher the animal and then they serve it in the cafeteria. So it goes all the way around. So it's a great way for students to get some of those opportunities. When I worked I was at Brownsburg High School, as I mentioned before. Our business students had through the DECA program and also the business classes, they ran a store where they did all of the marketing, they put together materials, they sold those. So again, students could get hours for that, but it's also practical experience in running a business as well. And then lastly, CareerWorks, they actually partnered their regional workforce board in getting students apprenticeship opportunities. There's also Work and Learn Indiana is another resource that can connect students with work-based learning opportunities, and those are usually paid experiences as well. So again, it's really starting those conversations with what's available in your community and in the workforce and making those connections if you can. Next slide. So just a couple of things to note with this. CTE programming still counts towards the diploma seal. So if you have a partnership with your career centers and doing some of those programs, like for us, we had cosmetology, fire science, things along those lines are still going to count. But not all work-based learning experiences count towards career and technical education. And that's okay. It just makes a little bit difference as far as funding for schools because they do get funding if you do a CTE program. But really, we want students to have those opportunities outside of career and technical ed if it's in their interest. That's the most important piece. So again, some other differences. The diploma seals allow for 3 different placements, as I mentioned before, no fewer than 25 hours each placement. CTE placements are a little bit more strict, and then it is an entire 75-hour block. But again, those are usually more programs where they're structured and those are set up that they're at one placement. The diploma seals do not require work-based learning, as I mentioned, to be aligned to the student's pathway. But for CTE, it does have the requirement still to be in their graduation pathway to count. We are still putting together guidance on this, on what tracking and reporting looks like. Just for guidance, I tell students, make sure you're keeping track of your hours, whether that's through a pay stub or just using an Excel sheet for how many hours that you've done opportunities so that it's easy for them to keep that all in one place. Again, shameless plug, Indiana Career Explorer, as I mentioned before, is free. There is a graduation pathway graduation plan tool that's in there that students can make a resume and keep track of their experiences, and that stays with them. It doesn't go away even after they graduate. They can keep that information in one place. Next slide. So as I mentioned, again, work-based learning is shifting a bit. We still want it to be a good interaction between students and those industry professionals. But again, we're opening it up that it can be those on-the-job experiences or simulated work experience as well. But again, we want to make sure that these opportunities are going to be authentic for students. It's going to help them develop their skills and what's going to help them be successful in the field. We do want to make sure that for those formal work-based learning experiences, there is an agreement between the student and the placement, just so that we know what requirements are in place. The good news is we have examples of those. So I will say most work-based learning sites are already doing something similar as long as there's an agreement, but we do have some examples if you need one as well. Next slide. So including underneath the work-based learning experiences, as I mentioned before, it can be multiple different things. It can be that school-based enterprise, as I mentioned, if if students don't have transportation or there isn't a lot in your area as far as getting out in the field, that's a good option. Workplace simulation is another good one. I know a lot of career centers or also educational service centers have those available. For example, the East Central Indiana Educational Service Center, I visited there a couple of months ago, and they actually have students that on the computer it simulates them working through a surgery. Obviously, we can't put a student in an ER or a surgery or operation room to do some of those experiences, but they can still get those skills and work on them and get feedback in just a little bit different way. It does include, as I mentioned before, CTE programming still there. Those micro internships, again, 25 hours each. It also includes more developed academic internships, entrepreneurial experiences, or there are more formal modern youth or pre-apprenticeship programs. That's going to be for your students that are earning that employment honors plus seal, because it does have to be 650 hours is a lot to complete. So you want to make sure they're doing a formal apprenticeship program for that. Next slide. So now we'll go back to Tyler, our example, where he met his work-based learning experience. He did the internship opportunities with local judges in the government offices and law firms. One thing to note, he did some of those also remotely as well. I think that's something we can keep in mind. If a student can't get on the job, they can do some of those things remote as well. Most of his hours and internship opportunities were done during his senior year after he met most of his base requirements for his diploma. He was able to actually be out in the field, sometimes a full day or even multiple days a week. And then for him during his senior year, he did do a legal internship. He worked with a local law firm 2 days a week during one semester, and he was able to earn over 90 hours of work experience. All right, next slide. So one other thing I want to mention is the credentials of value. I won't spend a ton of time on this just because we're still building it out. But for students, if they can earn a credential of value, we know that they're going to be more likely to get a position after high school. I will say one positive, Indiana is #1 in the country with over 65% of students that leave high school with at least some college credit. That saves them time and money and is going to help them be more likely to be successful at the college level because they know what to expect. But we do have some work to do for students that maybe college isn't their path. We only have about 5% of students that have a credential prior to graduation. It could be some college work. Again, the Indiana College Corps meets that credential of 30 college credits that does transfer to many state or all state public colleges, but many private colleges are also on board with accepting the College Corps. A couple of areas that we want to help students is earning some technical certifications. That could be stackable certificates that are in their career path. Again, helping them to go directly into the workforce if that's their goal, or sometimes just helping students get experience that they can do a part-time job during college and maybe make more money than if they didn't have some of those technical certificates or skills. And then lastly, we do have some industry recognized credentials of value. Those are like, for example, ServSafe or mechanic certifications or things along the lines that, again, that are going to help students be successful to go straight into the workforce and give them a heads up for those that haven't completed those credentials yet. So we'll look now at Tyler. We're actually going to skip this one. I'll talk about it at the end, but this is more based for a school. But looking at Tyler, when he was in school, he was able to complete 2 different certificate programs and stack those together. So he was looking at paralegal studies. He was able to do an 18 credit hour short-term certificate, and he was able to roll that into a 30 credit technical certificate. So he was actually able to complete an Associate of Science in Legal Studies, and he was also able to complete the paralegal certification. So he was able to actually work as a paralegal while he was in college and gain skills in the law field and make some money as well, which we know is important too. Next slide. All right, as we wrap up, if you were not aware, there are some incentives for students that in completing the different Honors Plus seals. So for the Enrollment Honors Plus seal, Governor Braun released, I want to say it was the end of the school year last year, that students that complete the Honors Plus enrollment seal are guaranteed admission to all 7 of Indiana's public colleges. Many private colleges are also getting on board as well with this. That doesn't mean, though, I want to say that if your student gets accepted to Purdue, they will still, if they're interested in engineering or another competitive program, will need to apply to that program and meet those requirements. But they would be admitted as a general student in those universities. As I mentioned, we're continuing to add to that list. You can scan the QR code there. It'll take you to this document as we continue to get more information in that area. Also, under the if students are earning the Employment Honors Plus seal, we do have some partnerships with some of our state's largest employers, and that students do have a heads up in interviewing for these companies. There's also some partnerships with the Central Midwest Carpenters Union and getting admittance into their apprenticeship program. And again, I think we're going to get more apprenticeship and selective programs added to this list as well. And then we did partner with the Indiana National Guard and representatives from each military branch when we were building out the enlistment and service seal. that it does qualify them to join the Indiana National Guard, and that they do have some perks in earning college credits while they're getting training, and having those mentorships and job placement programs for those students that are interested in that track. So with that, we'll review quickly Tyler's overall picture of everything that went into his unique pathway. So for him, again, just reminding at the beginning, when we were looking at his personalized career coaching and academic advising, he was doing those college visits early, getting financial advising as well, having mentorships with industry professionals so that he was able to explore the field early and feel that he was confident in his decision in that pathway. We looked at his customized courses that align to his legal or law studies pathway. We also looked at work-based learning opportunities for him. For his work-based learning experiences, he did full day internships during his senior year after he got all those core requirements out of the way. He was able to do some virtual partnerships as well if he couldn't get into the courtroom, just to expand opportunities beyond what was locally available to him. And then lastly, we went over, he was able to get some of those stackable credentials so that he could actually move into employment while he was finishing up his college degree to help with that cost. And then also gaining some experiences as well. So with that, I'll talk about last couple of things here, just some reminders. With the new diploma resources, everything is on our DOE diplomas website, but I did link some specific things here, including the specific courses that count for that communications requirement or world perspectives courses. That is on that new Indiana diploma course eligibility, or also there is a full spreadsheet of every course that DOE recognizes that meets requirements. But again, I would also refer back to your local school districts and what courses they offer. They're going to have their course offering guide typically online. I would say closer till we get to Christmas break. Those usually start coming out. And then for students that are interested in studying or going into the military, there is that option for split option training where they can actually start military training during their junior year. We did align that directly with the enlistment seal. And then, as I mentioned before, for students that have to demonstrate skills in communication, collaboration, and work ethic, you can look at the rubric there on what we're looking at students need to have. A couple of other things that are coming. We will have an interactive advising tool to support school counselors and helping students track their requirements, but also that will be public facing for parents and students as well, just to see where they are with requirements and helping them to track, especially work-based learning hours, because we know that's going to be a little different for everyone. And then lastly, we are updating our state school accountability model. It used to be based on just test scores, which we know isn't the best indicator for all students and their success. Now it'll look at some of the pathways that students are completing, dual credits, things along those lines that are going to help them be successful for after high school. So it's not just based on a test score anymore. So last steps, if you want to switch this slide here, and then I'll save some time for questions at the end. The new diploma, schools can opt students in starting this school year. It can be per individual student or by a grade level, whatever's going to be best for the student and what the school has to offer. If schools or students opt in early, the students do have to earn one of the readiness seals. So it can't just be the base diploma. But after starting with the 2028-2029 school year, the new diploma is effective for all graduating seniors. If you do have questions, you can scan or feedback, you can scan that QR code when it goes to an inbox at the department. Or again, I'm going to save some time for questions at the end. If you want to go to the next slide, it has our team email on it. So if you're welcome to ask a question while we're here today, and we'll look back at the chat, what's in there. But if you want to reach out to either of our teams there, Student Pathways, or I'm part of the Student School and Family Engagement team as well, you're welcome to reach out to either of us for support. And then lastly, everything I talked about, the new diploma, is from that website linked at the end at the DOE's website as well.
I have a question. Thank you, Rebecca. I have a question real quick, and
Sure.
if no one else has one. So in terms of the internships that they can complete,
Mhm.
does it have to be with an approved provider, or is it just documentation that has to come from the person who's hosting the internship for the school?
Yeah. For the SEALs, it does not have to be like a formal like internship. If you're doing career and technical education or wanting CTE funding, it has to be. But otherwise, it can be a student is doing an internship at their local church and they're like doing some work there. As long as somebody can verify those hours and they're keeping track of those hours, that could count. Or it can be a part-time job. It doesn't necessarily have to be a career technical ed or a formal internship, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, as we started an internship this past summer. It was 2 weeks, and we have 8 high school students who completed a medical
Okay, great.
internship. But I'm thinking of now we need to make sure they have documentation so that
Yeah, just
they
have them go back. Again, we're going to be building out, we're working on it as we speak, ways for students to track that formally with uh, a system. But until that happens, they can just keep track of like, it could be an Excel sheet. I did so many hours this day. And then just have somebody verify that. I usually tell students, make sure you have an email address, phone number, somebody that can verify that experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's a great question.
I have a question about your diploma tracks for students who have
Sure.
IEPs, and just let's say the IEP, they get extended time
Yes.
or some modifications or accommodations. Can they still go into any of those pathways if they would like to, or will their
Yeah.
schedules impede on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, especially with the base diploma, it does give them a little bit more flexibility if, and I'd always think of students maybe that struggled that couldn't, Algebra 2 was not a good fit for them for whatever reason, but they could still get work-based learning and meet graduation or pathways requirements and not necessarily have to do one of those full readiness seals. Or I would say those base level honor seals, either employment or enlistment, are still attainable for students. They can still use their, accommodations or things along those lines as well. So they would still have that opportunity.
Thank you. Parents, if you
Mhm.
have any questions, feel free to jump in or put your in the chat.
Yeah, I was looking through. I didn't see any questions, but I do second. I think again, building life skills in and opportunities for students. Um, I'm excited about that pathway moving forward. I have two young girls that are one in middle school and one in elementary school that I think this is a great opportunity for students to be better prepared for future.
Absolutely. I'm trying to give the parents a chance.
Oh yeah, no, you're fine. We can hang around. And again,
And if they're good, we'll just hang around till 7 o'clock.
yeah,
And Rebecca, I
absolutely.
want to thank you again for your time on behalf of Gruston for doing this evening. And then you don't have to commit to it today, but can we do another one, say like toward the spring of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we'll
Okay.
probably have some more guidance and things coming along those lines. So that would
Okay.
make total sense. So, let me know some dates and times that work for if you have
Okay.
other events that everybody's gathering, or again, we can
Yeah.
look ahead and see what works. Happy to
Okay.
help support.
Do
Okay.
you prefer a virtual space or
I can do either or. If
Okay.
you, I'm local to Indianapolis and I don't mind
Okay.
traveling as well. I was in Fort Wayne yesterday presenting to a group of people. So I am open to either or, whatever best supports your organization.
Okay.
All right. Well, parents, caregivers, if you don't have any questions or concerns, we're gonna let Rebecca go at least 59 seconds early here tonight.
But again, you do have I know we give you a
I-
ton of information tonight, and I'm always one of those parents that I go home and process it, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh man, I got a good question. Feel free to reach out. That's what we're here for. So you have my contact information, so feel free to share. I know we're going to share the PowerPoint as well, so all of our information and links will be on there too.
Okay. All right, Rebecca, and we will stay in touch, and we'll definitely stay in touch
Yeah.
to partner back up. Probably like in the spring sometime. I gotta look at like the spring breaks for
Oh
all the
yeah, I
schools.
know. I feel like
It's
I can't believe
crazy.
it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like it's gonna be Christmas before we know it. This year is
It
went so fast.
it
Um,
had.
but yeah, happy to come support. As a mother of two girls, as well. I think all the opportunities students can get in planning early, the better.
Okay. All right. Thanks again, and have a great
Thank you.
night.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Robin, Dr. Morton, and all the parents who came on.
You're welcome.